First of all, welcome to our candidate forum for this year's election of Dignity USA's Board of Directors. I'm Bob Butts, I'm the National Secretary, and I'm joined today with Kenneth Dowling, our Elections Committee Chair. Also joining us are 7 candidates for the 4 open director positions beginning October 1, 2021. We truly appreciate their interest and willingness to contribute their time, talents by serving on the National Board. And as the co-chair for the Elections Committee and nominations, it's really wonderful to see so many great people, and we thank you in advance for all your help. The purpose of our forum is to introduce our candidates to our voting members as they prepare to cast their ballots. Our schedule tonight, 8 o'clock, is introductions. 8:15, the candidates will respond to 2 questions that they've received in advance. Then at about 8:45, we're going to have an open question and answer session, allowing our audience to pose questions to the candidates. And you can do that by posing the questions in the Q&A section of the margin in the bottom of your screen. At 9:15, we'll cover the basics and the final process for the election. So what I'm going to do, people are the most important thing here. So let's introduce our candidates. Let's start with our President and Vice President candidates, Melly Barber and Martine. The floor is yours.
Hi, all. For those who don't know me, my name is Melly Barber. I am a member of Dignity Indianapolis and have been involved in the leadership team there as well as with the Young Adult Caucus. I am honored to currently be serving as your Vice President and really looking forward to being able to continue to move Dignity into our future in this post-pandemic world.
And I'm Martine Whichker. I use he, him pronouns. I live in Durham, North Carolina now, recently moved here with my husband last year, but lived in Washington, D.C. and was part of Dignity Washington for a good eight years that I was there. Have been on the national board for the last 4 years, and I'm honored to run with Melly as Vice President now for the upcoming term. I do digital strategy work for national environmental nonprofit, and I really appreciate the opportunity to bring that those skills and think of our digital outreach and our overall communications and advocacy strategy to the board, and love to continue that. So we'll talk more about that later. Go on to the next to introduce.
All right, let's see. I'm supposed to do this alphabetically. So let's see. Al, why don't you introduce yourself? Oh, you're muted, Al.
Oh, you meant first name alphabetically. Here I thought I had a little chance to. Anyway, well, thank you, Bob. My name's Al Ristorfer. I've been a member of Dignity since, oh my God, 42 years, something like that. I've been members of Dignity Philadelphia. That's where we started, then to Central Pennsylvania, then to Washington, D.C. I'm now one of the small little group that has become the founders of the brand new Resurrection Parish or chapter called Dignity Baltimore. It hasn't been a Dignity Baltimore chapter since the 80s. So who knows what's going to happen, but we're off and running. I live in Maryland, as I said, with my husband. We've been together 27 years. We've been married formally for 5 with our 2 rescue dogs here. Outside of the Dignity experience, my professional background is I've been a human resources executive, chief executive officer a human resources executive officer for everything from Fortune 300 companies to small startups, both for-profit and publicly traded companies, as well as nonprofit organizations. So I've kind of gotten around. I'm kind of well known in the industry as a thought leader. I have a master's degree in organization development. I'm also a Catholic priest, an independent Catholic priest. I am now the pastor of Our Lady Undoer of Knots. There's a parish in outside of Baltimore, in the west of Baltimore, which is the host organization for Dignity Baltimore. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. If I've got any traits going for me, I tend to be very strategic, very results oriented, very direct, very creative, and that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you. Ann Pennick.
Hi, I'm Ann Pennick, and I'm actually in the Alexandria, Virginia area here, and I'm a member of Dignity Washington, and I've been a member since 2017, although I did some work with Dignity Washington starting in 2014. I've been serving on the board now for 2 years. I am an ordained Roman Catholic woman priest, and I'm just celebrating my 10th anniversary of ordination this year, June 4th. Very happy about that. But also, that's the vehicle for which I'm really honored to serve Dignity Washington and honored to serve the Dignity USA board. And it's just been a really great experience. I believe that I am a voice of inclusion. I want to bring the same sort of acceptance and support to all Dignity members, as well as others in the LGBTQ+ community and their allies, because I do want to stand as a witness for an alternative to an institutional church injustice that I'm sure we all have experienced. When I'm not ministering with Dignity Washington or serving on the board, my day job, I work 3 days a week at a local Virginia university as a licensed professional counselor. And I've used those counseling skills and translated them into pastoral care and counseling as well.
Thank you, Ann. Ellen Euclid.
Hi, I'm Ellen Euclid, she, her pronouns. I live in Cleveland Heights, Ohio. I was in Chicago for a while. Some people know me from when I was working at Call to Action, which at this point is 10 years ago. And time really flies. I've already done 1 term on the Dignity Board, so I'm excited for the chance to keep working on the projects that I've gotten to start in the last 2 years. I'm on the membership committee and also pretty invested, as we all are, in the new anti-racism initiatives that we're trying to grow. Here in Cleveland Heights, I attend a regular diocesan parish that we're really lucky is very welcoming and wonderful, you know, up until that red line where they can't be anymore. But for now, it works for me and my wife. She sings in the choir, and I'm on parish council. So I think that I bring that perspective to the board of someone who's going to a diocesan parish, not a Dignity chapter. I've never been a member of a local chapter. I haven't been lucky enough to be near one that was a good fit for me, but I have always been active on national and on the Young Adult Caucus. I went with Equally Blessed to World Youth Day. So I really feel like Dignity is a huge part of my spiritual life, even though it's not my Sunday parish. And I think that being on the board is, you know, a part of my ministry in the world, something I'm very glad to be able to do. So,
Thank you, Ellen.
yeah, I think that's it.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Oh, no, I guess that's about it anyway, unless you want to know about my work life and all that. But
All right. Lori Myers. Tell us
Hi.
about yourself.
Hi, I'm Lori, and I live in Metro Detroit. I'm on the leadership team of Families with Dignity, which is a brand new caucus for dignity. And some of you might know the story behind it, but we were formerly called Fortunate Families Detroit, and we were kicked out of the Archdiocese along with Dignity Detroit. And then we had kind of an existential crisis where the Fortunate Families national group did not want us to put out a mission statement that was as strong as we had proposed. So anyway, rather than be silenced in that way, we consulted with some of our friends at Dignity Detroit and Mary Ann, and were invited to join as a caucus of Dignity USA. And we're delighted to be here, and we feel that it's really a wonderful home for us. Personally, I have been involved with the Detroit group since I think 2013 or 2014. And in fact, it was at one of those meetings that I met a gentleman who lives in the same area. And we together started a PFLAG chapter here in Plymouth Canton in 2014. So that's become very active, and I'm the secretary there. And so we're very involved in the community, and have worked with the school district here to create a supportive policy for transgender students. And we're working on trying to expand to anti-racism efforts as well. So my background is in journalism and communications. And then as a second career, I went to culinary school, and I've been cooking and catering since then. So that's about it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lori. And Mary Burns, tell us about yourself and your interest in being on the board.
Hi, everyone. It's so nice to meet all of you. I'm from Dayton, Ohio. Retired in 2019 after 43 years working in Head Start as either a Head Start director or a CEO. So I worked with a lot of little kids.
Oh, Mary, something happened.
Okay. Yeah, she's frozen. I'm wondering, is there, Logan, is there a phone number we can give her so she can call in if needed for the Zoom? Okay, she's gone, so maybe she'll come back.
We hope.
We hope. So if she doesn't come back, I'll move on with the questions, and maybe she can have an introduction as part of her answer. Yeah, okay.
Sounds good.
Mm-hmm. So,
all right, Kenneth, go ahead.
Sure. So now the candidates will respond to the two prepared questions that we sent them in advance. And if Logan could pull up that slide for us. Thank you. So the first question is that Dignity USA has a strategic plan with 4 overriding goals. Oh, there's the timer. And so we want to ask the candidates, to which of these do you feel your gifts and experience will enable you to contribute best, and how? And so they can speak to one of the goals, some of them, all of them. And so you see them here. I'll read them. Amplify our prophetic voice, embrace global leadership, connect in new ways across our communities, members, allies, and broader audiences, ensure our future vitality and optimize our available human resources, and nourish all LGBTQ ally life experiences and identities with educational resources. The second question is, how do you envision Dignity USA post-pandemic in leadership, ministry, and community? And so I will after Logan stops sharing the slide, I will just post them in the chat for people's reference. And then Bob, I believe that you you had an order and it was going to be Melly and Martine first, right?
Yes.
Okay. So if Melly, if you could answer these questions for us.
Yeah. Kenneth, did you want me to respond to both questions together, or are you going to come back through?
Are you there?
Together.
Both together. Okay. Well, I think, you know, I think that I'm passionate and interested in all four of the priorities, but in the last year, in light of the pandemic and the different ways that we have had to adapt, when I think about these priorities, the one that really stands out to me is connecting in new ways across communities, members, allies, and broader audiences. And I think a lot about the ways that we've been forced to adapt how we connect even as a Dignity community. Of all the things that I have been involved in the last 2 years as vice president, the experience that stands out the strongest to me was facilitating a town hall, the response to the responsum. And we did it across 2 nights, maybe many of you were with us. And it was a really wonderful opportunity for us to come together as Dignity USA in this kind of Zoom space to be able to share our thoughts, our reactions, the ways that we were all feeling in light of that Vatican statement. So just thinking about the different ways that we've adapted to be community, that really stands out to me as a place where my passion is in helping us to continue to grow and to develop that sense of community in our chapters, but also as a broad USA network. And I think that really connects to the vision for Dignity USA in a post-pandemic world. Some of you may know a lot of my background is also in parish ministry. I worked as a director of religious education and a youth minister for a number of years. And I also helped to co-found the Catholic worker community in Indianapolis. And so I've spent a lot of my time thinking about how we are community to each other, how we relate to each other, and how to form those connections, both when we're able to be together in person, but also when we're not, and we're separated by miles and Zoom screens. So as I think about our future moving forward, I want us to really lean into that Catholic worker value of radical hospitality. And I think that really came to light for us in this last year as we thought about how we welcome people in new ways and how we're responding to a growing understanding of the racial injustice in the world and wanting as a community to become more anti-racist. As a priority. I want to see Dignity move forward in ways where we're connecting more in virtual spaces, where we're preparing our communities and our caucuses to form those connections. And we're really doing the work in ourselves and in our communities to be the most welcoming community that we can be, both to our LGBTQI friends and family, but also with our minority communities, and to really make sure that we are a space that is open and affirming and safe for everyone.
Thank you, Melly. All right, now Martine.
Thanks. Yeah. Adding on to that, for me, the mission of Dignity is like what keeps me coming back, right? We celebrate the wholeness and holiness of us LGBTQI Catholics and together with our allies. And, we are a prophetic voice to the hierarchy and to the Vatican and pushing back against toxic and oppressive statements. And we are community together and we are church together. And that is such a beautiful mission, and we all know it, but I also know millions of other Catholics and people of faith and allies and queer folks across the country and across the world are with us as well, right? And part of what I like, we have millions of people that are with us, but how are we reaching them, right? Or and are we getting our message out there? Are we launching campaigns that reach folks and strong messages and using in this new digital world, right? That's been something, tackling how to do that better, how to build campaigns, how to reach new folks, new communities. That has been like my mission as the last 4 years and being on the board, and I want to continue that. I think that is part of one of the first strategic line, right, of our strategic plan of amplifying a prophetic voice. but also it means bringing new people in. And, you know, I was part of the Young Adult Caucus and helped lead the Young Adult Caucus, and we, you know, created retreats, and we've restarted that and have great virtual gatherings now monthly. And and as Melly said too, I think this comes to the post-pandemic question, right? Like, we've all become a little bit better in the virtual world and in virtual connection. And so how do we do that? As Melly said, the responsum and the Catholic Pride blessing at the beginning of this month was another beautiful example. But the more people we bring into, the more we can be financially healthy as well, right? So the more possible donors and the more possible volunteers and the more sustainability we are as a long-term organization. So we have a lot to do. We have a lot to work on, and we have a beautiful mission. I just look forward to continuing to bring it forward.
Thanks, Martine. I should remind everyone that Melly and Martine are running for president and vice president, respectively. So now I want to welcome Mary Burns back. And so, Mary, I asked you to introduce yourself for 2 minutes, and then are you prepared to respond to the 2 questions I sent earlier?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great.
I don't know what's going on. I think it's storming up here. We're in near 70 and 75, and we get bad storms up here sometimes. So hopefully my power won't go out again.
Wind of the horizon.
So I'll just kind of recap real quickly what I was saying. I've been involved with Living Beatitudes community for about 5 years, I think. It's been about 5 years. And it's just a place that Rita and I, my partner of 36 years, we kind of had given up on, quote, church, but we found this community, and it couldn't be any better place. We just love it. We have a great community there, and I'll talk a little bit about that in my answers. My background is, I have a master's in social work with community organizing as the focus and a master's in counseling. But my work was 43 years as the director of Head Start in a 9-county area, and then in the 3-county area. We served about 3,000 children in each group and saw tremendous growth over the years that I was there. It's at my heart. My heart is there with Head Start always. So what else can I say? That's my introduction, I think. Enough to tell you right now. Now, should I do my questions or just wait, go around again?
Yes, please.
Do my questions, okay.
Thank you.
So as I thought about the questions, the things I looked at in the first question had to do with 1A, I called it 1A and 1B and C kind of together. I didn't do much with D yet. But to me, it's very important that we have and are able to, that we have a very strong dignity national group, and that we're able to maintain that. Knowing that technology will continue to drive our future, we also need to recognize that many people are not able to access things as easily as the rest of us sometimes. And I'm so glad that there are young people involved in this, and you will be the wizards of the future, let me tell you. Some of us need you. We need to work together to make better connections in our own communities with all chapters and caucuses, and even those in other countries. I've been struck on a couple of things I've been on where people have come on from Great Britain, and I think there was somebody on the other night from Nairobi. It was fascinating to me that people are joining us from all over, and that's great. Although communities may look different, I think we need to really focus on pushing positive connections at all levels. And I know that I don't know a lot about it yet, but the generosity of the Leadership Sustainability Fund, I'm sure is meant to help with these efforts for outreach. And I look forward to helping with that process. As far as future vitality and optimizing our available human resources, I hope that my past experience with things like strategic planning, leadership development, and grant writing will be helpful to the organization. For example, since COVID started, outside funding is not always easy to find, but maybe, just maybe, if the nation gets healthier, we will have some chance to recoup and gain some opportunities on a new horizon. Although the pandemic has been very tough for all of us at LBC, we have actually grown our membership this year. We have about 50 members that are on every Sunday. We have weekly liturgies, we have weekly updates, we have board meetings. I'm currently the membership chair of our own board. We have a very active social justice committee. We have a strong Facebook presence, and we outreach to members who just sometimes don't show up. So as a membership chair, that's one of the things I've taken on is, I'll notice who's not there or who's not been there for 2 or 3 Sundays, and I try to give people a call, and that's always been appreciated. I think our membership right now in our community is made up of so many lesbians, gay men, married couples, both gay and straight, trans members. I mean, we don't have any little children yet, but we do have 2 women who are expecting their first baby in August. So we are all kind of getting ready and knitting and crocheting and doing all sorts of things. So watch out. That baby will grow up with all of us. But we have to take people where they are so they can continue to ensure that we all have a place at the table. And I think that's one of the main things I feel about Dignity. All of you work very hard to make that happen for all of us. As far as post-pandemic, since I haven't been involved with you, I'm just hoping that we'll be able to resume in-person meetings. I heard they were always fun. I wasn't able to get to the Chicago thing, but I've still heard stories about all of you. So it's been fun knowing all that. Knowing how LBC has grown during the pandemic, perhaps we can reach out to members without a local community. I feel bad for people when I hear that, there's not a local community for somebody. What we found with LBC, now we have members from Florida on, we have somebody from, I think Massachusetts gets on. Ellen, I think since you're in Cleveland Heights, you could join us. We'd love that sometime. So, Zoom and live streaming allow people to come on that maybe wouldn't have thought about it before. I also thought about another thing about post-pandemic. I wonder if some of the members without their own communities could be paired with board members to focus on connections and support as needed. Maybe almost like, if people were out there kind of in the wilderness alone, if they could be paired with somebody as a buddy, as a check-in person on a weekly or every bi-weekly basis, that might be something really helpful, because we're all better together than separate and alone. And those would be my thoughts. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary. I'm glad you were able to come back and answer all those things with grace after being flustered, probably.
I don't know how much grace, but
Hail Mary, full of grace.
Yeah.
So, all right, now going back in the original order, I will ask Al to share his responses to the 2 questions.
Oh, good. Thank you. This is probably not going to endear everyone to me right now, but I don't know what to make of these 4 objectives, to tell you the truth. They strike me as being more poetry than anything that I, in my experience as a corporate executive, would understand as a real goal. So one of the things I'd like to do, and I'm also at a bit of a disadvantage because I don't know what Dignity's already doing in any of these areas. Mm-hmm. But it would seem to me that one of the things that I would want to do is to get a sense of where we're at right now in terms of any one of these things, and then kind of boil these things down to things that are tangible. For example, when I read amplify our prophetic voice and embrace global leadership, I really don't know what that means. If I was to present that to my board right now I'm the head of HR for a publicly traded biotechnology company, for example. That's what I do right now for a living. I wouldn't they'd kick me out of the room. They'd say, what are you talking about? What do you really want to do? What can we hold you to? So I'd want to know, are you really saying that we want to grow the organization and particularly, become more influential as a change process, as a change agent in the global world? Well, that says to me, then if you're going to grow, you got to boil that down to some strategies. There's only 2 ways to grow that I know of. One is organically and one is through acquisitions. That's how we're doing it with my parish. We've decided we've got very targeted populations we want to go after. We decided that we've narrowed those down to specific targets, like, for example, in terms of building relationships with other organizations. We are well down the road of building a relationship with the local Roman Catholic Women's Priest organization in Baltimore, which is called the Living Waters Community. We've had several meetings with them right now. We're going to eventually create an intercommunion agreement where we're going to start to look like what I think Bob has told me Dignity Dayton looks like, where Dignity becomes something that is part of a larger community. So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. I mean, you know, growing the organization, you could look at the way FedEx does things. FedEx used to see themselves as brick and mortar, having stores all over the place. They then began to realize, no. We can actually expand by aligning ourselves and becoming residents in other enterprises that already have the brick and mortar. So you see FedEx shops right now in CVS pharmacies and in Walgreens and in Targets and that kind of thing. Dignity could do the same thing. Dignity be looking for groups out there, parishes out there, particularly independent churches out there that would welcome the Dignity chapter within their midst. I know of Tampa, for example, one of the Casina parish of St. Teresa of Calcutta would love to become the new Dignity Tampa, for example. So that's kind of like tangible thing. We say we're going to go after independent churches, RCWP, whatever, and we're going to try to build these relationships so that within 2 years, the Dignity chaptership has now doubled. Now I've got a goal I can put my head around, I can put my hands around, and I can focus my efforts. So that's kind of what I would do. The other stuff, you know, building the community, building the available leadership resources. I mean, I don't know, man, 35 years as an HR executive, I think I could probably help out there. But again, I'd want to know what are we doing now and what are we actually really trying to achieve? Then we could put together programs around it. So that's my stick.
Okay, thank you, Al. Okay, and now Anne, please.
Okay. Well, as I looked over these goals and strategies, you know, I found that I resonated with all 4 of them, and in particularly, I zeroed in on 2 of them, and then narrowed it down to the one where I felt that my gifts and my talents would probably be put to pretty good use. For those of you who don't know, for the 12 years, I was in parish ministry, and I was a college campus minister and Catholic chaplain, first at University of South Carolina, and then at Emerson College and Tufts University, and at Northeastern University in Boston. And then when I was called to the priesthood, of course, I had to look for a secular job. So then I was also a campus minister. And I'm sorry, not campus minister, but I built practically out of nothing a counseling center at College of Southern Maryland. And I was the first counselor to be hired. And they, of course, wanted me to build this program. I love building things out of nothing. I find it a challenge. I find it a lot of fun. And so in thinking about these strategic priorities, the one that I resonated most with my skills and talents would be to the nourishing all LGBTQI ally life experiences, gender expressions and identities with educational resources. And we've already talked about retreats and programming. But before that, I think, you know, about getting the word out to those who don't know about Dignity. I just this week told two of the groups on my Facebook page about Dignity, and they hadn't heard about Dignity. And then today, some of my colleagues hadn't heard about Dignity, so I had an opportunity to tell them. But you know, getting that word out, getting more people to know who we are and what our mission is, and so envisioning, you know, how this is going to be in a post-pandemic world. You know, again, I'm thinking about what Melly brought up about that radical hospitality. Being that prophetic voice, and, you know, promoting, you know, racial justice as well as justice for the LGBTQ plus community, and, you know, meeting people where they're at, and reaching out to the allies and the families who support our work, and, you know, developing, you know, resources from there. But I think getting that word out, you know, getting one-on-one with people, meeting with groups of people, talking to people, educating people about who we are and our vision for moving forward. And I think the more, you know, people that understand what we're about, I think we'll be, you know, in a much better position to go ahead and develop that programming and developing those contacts. That's so important.
Wonderful, thank you, Anne. Do you like Annie or Anne?
Either one. They started calling me Annie in college, and it kind of stuck.
Cool. Ellen, please.
Um, yeah, so we've been obviously working with these priorities and vision statements for a while. And I have found myself always sort of falling into the idea of how can we engage more people and on all different levels of engagement. Like Martine said, a big part of that priority area has been our digital engagement. And I think one of the maybe secret blessings of the pandemic, not secret, we all know it, but surprise blessings of the pandemic was how much digital stuff we've been forced to do. I know like the Catholic Pride blessing earlier this month was so successful. And I know that I personally invited people who maybe would never engage with most things Dignity does, but you know, parents of gay adults or you know, people in my family who would do that one event. And I think it has a really powerful impact when we can engage people even on that real basic level and then build from there, like Martine said. And I also think not only for the sake of our organization and our donations and power, but also just for the sake of improving the world, right? I think that there's a lot of people who have given up on the Catholic Church, but in that grief find a lot of strength and healing in knowing that we exist and that we do work that maybe they don't feel able to do. And so I think our mere existence, as Linda has said, our mere existence has saved lives, even if we don't know they're engaged. And so I feel like continuing my work in that on the board is important to me. And also, as I said in my introduction, like continuing to build with the people who are only in Dignity National and not having a local group. I know we've started to talk a little bit about how we can continue once the chapters maybe stop streaming their liturgies. Is there a way to still have some digital liturgies available sometimes? And things like that. So I'm really optimistic that those conversations are starting, and I'm excited to see where that takes us, even when some of us go back to in-person worship.
Thank you, Ellen. Okay, and now last but not least, Lori.
Hi, thank you. I guess I also was struck by the connecting in new ways across our communities with members, allies, and broader audiences. Again, so I'm a parent of an LGBT grown adult, and I know there are many, many, many parents out there who are struggling because the church has rejected their child. And while it may be easier for the child to walk away from the church because it's too hurtful for them, maybe the parents, at least in my experience, it's been part of my life for forever, right? And I was I had 16 years of Catholic education. I know so many good Catholics and priests and sisters. So I guess in the same way that you all were saying, there are millions of people who are struggling because because of the church's rejection of LGBTQ plus people, and it seems like we should be able to reach more of them. I mean, I know that the institutional church, especially here in Detroit, has done its very best to shut us down, right? We're not, no priests are allowed to preach for us, and we've been shut out. But certainly there are ways, and the digital ways that Martine was talking about, Facebook and Instagram. I mean, I think that there are also things that we can do to make those a little more vibrant and to get some more followers there. I spent a lot of time working in social media, and I'm not sure I want to do that anymore, but I'm sure that there are really good ways to do that. So things like that. I think also the fourth one about nourishing LGBTQ ally life experiences with educational resources. I mean, there are so many great, for example, books for kids that are affirming now. There are hundreds and hundreds of them. And is there a way that we could offer them to schools? Is there a way that we could offer like a printed publication? You know, like if I know that my Catholic friend in the parish is struggling because their kid came out to them, is there a pamphlet I can give them about Dignity USA? So things like that I think are really helpful. I was able to download the brochure about religion that the HRC had done that mentioned dignity extensively and had great stuff in it for Marianne. But it would be wonderful if I had a paper copy that I could give to somebody, right? So just things like that. Those are tactical things. And as far as post-pandemic, I mean, our group has been meeting, you know, for the last year and a half by Zoom. And I think we've all been surprised by how useful it has been for us and how we're able to get people who live farther away, who are not, you know, who are not going to make it into Detroit. So I think there are definitely things we want to keep from that. But of course, there is no substitution for, you know, personal contact, giving somebody a hug, you know, talking to people face to face. So I think there are things that we need to keep from that. And I guess that's about it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. I'm really impressed by all these thoughtful responses. I'm really excited to hear some of them on the board come October. And so thank you all for preparing those responses with pretty short notice. Appreciate that. Okay, Bob?
Okay, am I muted?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Well, and I want to say, having spoken with you, all of you from day one, thank you for such wonderful insights. You know, this is so exciting to see the new ideas, the new life, and just your wonderful passion for this work. It really, I often say at board meetings, this is the most important work you're ever going to do. And it's great to see such wonderful stewards of that work. Okay, I think we're going to pull up questions and answers. We would ask the members in our audience to use the Q&A function. And what we're going to do for each question, we'd ask that 2 or 3 candidates chime in so we can moderate this. We'll track the questions. And again, remind everyone, submit your questions via the Q&A thing. So let's see if we've got any here. No questions. Okay. All right. Let me see here. I'll pose a question. Let's see here. Al, you're in a new community. Mary, you're in an existing community. How would you challenge people to make the buy of a membership? Okay, let's say I go to Dignity Baltimore. It's a great community. Why should I spend $60 for this membership? What, you know, I'm already going to mass. I already get something out of this. What's the selling point? And let's see here. Mary, I'll put you on the spot first. How about that?
Interesting that you asked that question. My sister and brother-in-law are members of our LBC community. They joined us. And today I said to her, you need to join Dignity too. She said, well, I thought only gay people join Dignity. I said, no, you can join because we need all the supporters we can get. She said, okay, I'm going to do that. So, you know, I think it's the matter of just talking about it openly. And Bob, I'm thinking when we get back together at LBC as membership chair, you know, for me to expand a little bit of my role there on the board, it would be to talk this up a bit more. Because I think once people understand, no, this isn't just for gay and lesbian people, trans people, it's for our supporters as well. And I love Lori's approach because, I mean, that's so true. What's happened is the parents of gay and lesbian adults often are in grieving and having a very hard time. And if they knew they could come and be with us and see another life for their children, no matter what their age, I think that would also help them. I know we have one woman that just joined us recently, and she has 2 sons who are gay, and she's just loving us. I mean, she just loves being with us now because she feels like we are supportive. And so she and her husband, I think, are both joining Dignity very soon.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Al, what do you think?
Honestly, don't know. I haven't cracked that code yet, but we're working on it. We have right now at the parish, and that includes the chapter, we have 42 people that we consider to be parishioners in one way, shape, or form. Well, the other thing we've done is we've created various levels of involvement. There's the full-blown member that's the dues-paying person. There's an affiliate member that's kind of like out there wanting to be part of us, that sort of thing. There's affiliate clergy, which is another group altogether, which is a whole separate thing. And then there's just people that want to get on the mailing list and be in touch. I guess what I'm hoping for is that particularly after the pandemic's over, as people actually get physically near us again and they begin to realize what a wonderful place we can be, then it's going to become a little bit more of a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more resources you have, the more people you have, the more things you can do, the more reasons people would want to get in touch with us. We're just so new at this right now. Now we barely can hold together to say mass on Sunday mornings, so Sunday afternoon or Sunday evenings, you know what it is. Yeah, I honestly don't know. I mean, even of those 40 people, the number of people that actually enrolled as our parishioners and that are willing to sign up for the online giving program is a minuscule number of people by comparison. So, sorry, don't have much to add here.
It's a challenge, yes.
But again, my goal is not to get them as members. My goal is just to reach out to them and say, there's a place for you here. And once that happens, I think the kind of formal connection will come later.
Okay, we have a question from Carly Stevenson. A number of legacy progressive Catholic organizations have closed their doors in recent years due to lack of sustainable funding. What will the board members do to ensure that Dignity had the financial resources to serve the community for the next 50 years? Let's see, Martine, since you will be the vice president. Ellen, what do you think about that? Sorry, guys.
Are you asking
Go
me or
ahead,
you have to
Martine.
Ellen? We can both
Well,
go.
Ellen, you go first.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a central question to the board, I think. And it's so impressive, the things that the development committee has done and the idea that came up for this sustainability fund, but that's a short-term band-aid fix. People have been super generous. But I think to me, the big thing is just taking a really hard look at our funding model and admitting that times change and relying on membership dues is not, or even major donors as they already exist, is not really doing it. Clearly, grants have changed over time. And so I am encouraged by the fact that I think, at least in my term on the board, and I'm pretty sure before that, the board has been really honest about that with ourselves and working on plans to find new major donors who maybe aren't existing members, or new things to partner with. I mean, the fact that those other organizations have sort of downsized their programming maybe leaves an opportunity for us, because people are still looking for those progressive Catholic spaces. And not to say that we need to snipe their members, but like there's a need there, and we are still here and we are wanting to fill it. So I think just continuing on that same track, but also just really pushing ourselves hard on the fact that grant funding is changing and that we can't rely on existing members. We need probably new people. I'm not on the development committee. Maybe I should be, I don't know. So I haven't done a lot of personal asks. But I do think the digital strategy helps. How's
Wonderful.
that for rambling? Go ahead, Martine.
Sure, I'll take that where you picked up there. Yeah, I agree with Ellen saying diversifying our revenue, our funding sources, right? We've seen this shift. We were very dependent on one foundation in recent years, and foundations change, grants change, funding changes. So we've been looking at a diversifying, and we've been relying so much too also on a small core number of major donors, our amazing community of hundreds of folks across the country. But like I said, there's millions of us, right? And that want to support us, and folks like Lori, right? And your families of dignity. It's so amazing to bring in that as a caucus and the energy you bring. And so I've been excited that we've starting to think about this different model and diversifying our model, and especially how we bring in new people, one email at a time. Like Al said, there's different levels of engagement, right? And we are growing our email list now, right? We are growing people, and we have hired a digital strategist who is very is Greg McCollum. He has done amazing work to both manage our social media, manage our email list, and produce good-looking graphics and be part of the programmatic work, right? And that has helped us a cohesive strategy to bring in new people, to widen our possible people who are in our orbit, and from there, the connections, the programming, the connections we make. And then we have to make the ask to make donors, everything from $5 to $100, a month, to when big moments happen of a Supreme Court case or a Vatican statement, people want to give because we're angry or we're sad or we're excited. And that is when, we can make money by showing who we are as a movement, right? And the power of the movement. So making the ask through our channels in many ways, that's one way that we're diversifying our movement, and that we are well on our way and have a lot of work to do, but I'm excited that that's part of our future.
Beautiful. I think this next question might be kind of a Melly and Martine question. And it's from Mark Matson in Columbus. What are your thoughts about dignity as a leader of the global movement that we were exposed to at our 50th anniversary conference?
I'm happy to share some thoughts about that. I think one of the really amazing things that we are able to do is that we have been supporting and kind of working with the global network of Rainbow Catholics. As many people know, Mary Ann Duddy Burke serves on their board, and so we have a really strong connection with the GNRC. I think Ellen pointed out, one of the gifts of the pandemic was really learning how to be more connected in a global or a digital space. And so, as some people have noticed, as we've continued this partnership, this friendship with the GNRC, we've seen them participate in more of our digital spaces. So attending the Catholic Pride Blessing, attending the Responsum, and being able to kind of grow that community even across global lines. And I think that we all look forward to the world becoming more open so that we can continue to work with GNRC in the days to come. Both Ellen and I have attended World Youth Day as representatives of Dignity. And so I know I'm very interested in seeing how we can partner with GNRC at the next World Youth Day to have not just US contingency of LGBTQI people showing up and representing that it is very possible to be gay and Catholic and to claim that identity, but to really work with the GNRC to have like a European or a global contingency of people there showing up as well. So I think the opportunities for collaboration are so great with GNRC as we move forward into our future.
Wonderful. Martine, anything to add? Okay.
Maybe
All right.
Thanks, Melly.
All right. This question is from Bob Mialovich. And how How do we continue to provide support to LGBTQ plus Catholics in light of the growing trend towards broader, more inclusive progressive Catholic communities? Can we maintain our focus on the needs of LGBTQ Catholics and allies? And Anne, can you take that?
Yes. Well, first of all, I read the question in the Q&A. If I'm to understand this correctly, it's I'm guessing like Dignity support is like a support group for the LGBTQ plus community who, I'm hoping I'm understanding this right, are in parishes, and then Dignity is their support. Whereas, you know, I look at my Dignity Catholic community in Washington as my primary parish. I I guess I'll get a little personal here. You know, I'm Roman Catholic first. Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to be ordained in the Roman Catholic Church. They don't allow me to be a priest. They tell me I can't, you know, because I'm a woman. And yet I want to serve the church. And when I came face to face with my calling at the Women's Ordination Worldwide in 2005 in Ottawa, Canada, well, my immediate response was fear and no, not me, please, not me. I'm into popular. This is not a popular walk. I want to serve the church. I want to be part of the church. And I guess I feel, you know, that these Dignity communities, not only do they support LGBTQ plus people, but they're also supporting allies, families of Dignity people, and they're welcoming of all of us. And so I see this as my primary community. And I purposely went, you know, to like Loyola University in Chicago and Boston College in Boston to get, you know, to get a Catholic theological education so I can serve the church. What I didn't realize is other doors would open for me, and to be able to serve as a priest, a rotating priest in the Dignity Washington community is one of honor. And I'm serving the church that way. And I still consider myself serving the church. I'm hoping that I'm answering that question, you know, correctly. But those were some of the thoughts that were, you know, swirling around in my head as I read that question.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you. Let's see here. We have another question from Marie. For those of you who have served on the board, what has been the most challenging issues you, with your individual responsibilities, have faced? And I think, oh, let's see, that's going to be Ellen, and how about Melly?
Okay. And actually, if I can also address a little bit of what Anne was talking about, because I think on that question, to me, it's really important that we acknowledge how many people can be both Catholic and former Catholic simultaneously. The number of gay Catholics going to Episcopal parishes or wherever or no church at all is enormous, and those are our people. So to me, the question kind of sets up a bit of a non-problem. Like, I think we just need to find ways to support people that maybe are not Sunday Mass, because maybe they're getting Sunday Mass elsewhere, but still with other things, other programs. And I think honestly, that is part of one of my challenges in the last 2 years. I think this question of like our evolving role and the evolving world around us continues to be just confusing, right? Like, I think there are fewer people my age searching out a Dignity chapter for worship. I think there are other places we can go to worship. I think there are a lot of people who don't want to do that on a Sunday, but still need the other support and the other advocacy that Dignity represents. And just that confusion and that growth has been really hard to navigate, both between just balancing, the opinions of so many different members who have, really emotional ties to our historical work, to what's important to them, to what they think is important, So I think that continues to be a challenge for Dignity, but one that has exciting opportunities if we can see it as a both and.
Thank you, Ellen. Melly, anything to add?
I think I'd say something similar to Ellen, but I think the question of what does it mean to be a member of Dignity USA, and how do we relate to Dignity? It's kind of a question and an issue that I think about a lot. I think that younger people, myself or younger, are part of a generation that's less likely to be a card-carrying member of an organization or a group. And yet there are ways that people are more broadly aligned with our mission, with our values, signing our petitions, donating with our digital strategy, as Martina said. And so I think just the question of, what does it mean to be aligned with Dignity? How do people affiliate with us? And what does that look like as we broadly define who a member is, and who is part of us? It's kind of the question that we keep thinking about and looking at as we move forward.
Right. Okay, Bob has a question. And this is for Lori and Mary. Both of you bring absolutely wonderful credentials and professional experience with children and youth. And, one of the joys in our community, as Mary mentioned, we are having a pregnancy, and we're excited. How would you, within, both virtual as well as our community settings, how would you include children more? How would that ministry, what would that look like? Because if you look, we have young people on the board who are probably interested in having children. I'm seeing nodding, and it's exciting. So, Mary, why don't you start first?
Well, I think there's a number of things that could happen. I know at one point, Bob, remember we had a family that came with several little children who were very welcomed. I'm not sure what happened. They didn't continue to come, but I think as a community, we'd have to pay attention to the space that we're meeting in. We'd have to pay attention to the needs of the children. Is there some special area that the children can participate? Maybe for part of the liturgy, and then come back in with the parents and the adults. There's a lot of different ways to do it, because the children's attention span, especially little children, it's not real long. So, just to have some variety of activities for them to be available, and to also, we always did have a meal after our liturgy. So certainly the children could be a part of that with the families. I think that would take some brainstorming with the parents, especially about how much they would like their children to be involved. What ages do they stay in the community? Maybe not attend the whole time. I'm very interested in this whole question because I've got some great nieces and nephews who are basically coming out these days at 14 and 15 and 16 years old. And they're like, well, what do you do at your church? So I think they might come and join us sometime. Well, that's different. They're teenagers.
Right.
So it just depends on the age of the children.
Okay. Lori, what's your thoughts?
Yes. Okay. So I was quite struck by what Mary said about how you're taking on knitting and crocheting projects for a young couple in your area. And actually, I was thinking that one thing that I would like to see either in our group or nationally is to have more social action, right? So we were talking about here in Detroit, there have been like 4 people who have been forced to resign as music ministers, as teachers, just in the last year. And could we do anything to support them, right? Could we do fundraising and offer them a grant just, to buy groceries or pay, rent for a month or whatever. But along the same lines, could we, look for, and even within the parishes where there might be an LGBT couple who are having children, can we be sure to welcome them into the parish schools? Can we do outreach to the directors of equity and inclusion in our local schools? So we've tried to do that a little bit with Families with Dignity. We've done some outreach to all the Catholic high schools and who do have DEIs now. Honestly, we haven't gotten very far with it. We've made informal contacts and they've said, well, we are interested. Things are very difficult. Things are very touchy right now. But I think there really should be ways in which we can make or to encourage parishes to allow and to welcome, the kids of queer couples. So can they be baptized? Will they be welcome? If they go to school, are we gonna, can we not say mom and dad on the forms? All those really equitable things. So those are things off the top of my head that occurred to me.
Okay, we have a follow-up question. He said, building on that question, what are your thoughts on religious education programs for children of members? And I'm gonna open that up to any of you.
Yeah, I'll speak a little to, I think something that came up in our young adult retreat a couple of years ago was similar to this question. I think a lot of us in our 20s and 30s have gotten married recently, or just also thinking about adoption, or single and thinking about adoption, or other ways of becoming parents, fostering and surrogacy, and thinking about our future families, right? And how do we interact with dignity, and how dignity might change, or what resources, what might we seek from dignity. So Laura, you started to mention some of those for sure, like baptism ceremonies and CCD classes, or what would a queer friendly CCD class look like? Or, how could we gather 3 to 5 families with kids, that are like 4 or 5-year-olds, or, in a few years when some of us have that, how can we create those spaces, right? And there might be a new caucus of parents, queer parents, right? But to one of the lines of our strategic plan is educational resources or resources in general. We've talked about with our 50th anniversary, and some of that can be liturgical resources. And some of us have, created our own wedding ceremonies, and there's resources there in our community there. And along with that too, we've talked about naming resources for naming, confirming, right? For trans folks or non-binary folks who might change their name, and how can we bless that? How can we, so there's a whole along with educational and religious education resources, a whole swath of that, we have an opportunity to create, right? of resources, liturgical, educational, and that's one way people could access dignity, to be part of dignity, to are part of our movement. Some exciting ideas that we've had also in the past and have opportunity to create.
Lori.
Well, that just reminded me though that when my queer son was going through confirmation, he was going to religious ed, and they always have these Q&As, and a kid asked, so what should you do if your friend tells you they're gay? And the teacher said, well, you should be nice to them, but you shouldn't be their friend anymore. Oh. And so, right. And so my son told me that, and I called the school and everything, but he just, he was just like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not going to be confirmed, whatever. Right. So we definitely need to be sensitive to these kids. And it would be wonderful to create a queer-friendly religious ed program.
Ellen.
Yeah, well, I was basically going to say something similar to Lori's, although not as powerful as her story. But just to say that I think there's a lot of heterosexual couples with young children who would also, it's not just the Dignity members. I think it might be another opportunity to sort of expand our reach to other allies who don't want their kids growing up with that anti-queer religious ed. So.
Yep. Yep. Anybody else? Well, again, oh wait, we have two. We have Melly.
I was just going to echo what Ellen said, that I think, again, this goes back to this idea of what does it mean to be a member of Dignity, and how do people interact with us, and how are they aligned with us? Certainly there are some who go to our weekend liturgies, who pay membership dues, who go to different events that we have. And there may be other people who want to interact with us to access these resources if they're available online, or if there's some kind of religious education class in one of our chapters. There might be people that would want to, affiliate with us for the purpose of religious education. I personally have a lot of energy around thinking about or dreaming about what that might look like. My background is in parish religious education, and that's what I did professionally in a previous life, but to really think about what it looks like to educate our children and to prepare them for sacraments. So I definitely think this is an amazing opportunity that we are uniquely qualified to, prepare this, to offer this to the world, and to have this resource available for our own members, and as well as Ellen had pointed out, for heterosexual couples who just are looking for a more affirming religious education program for their children.
Wonderful. I'm going to hand this off to Kenneth. Oh, wait, Kenneth, you want to continue more? Okay, I'm getting it. Okay, hold on here. We have two more questions. One, there are many LGBTQI Catholics who are not near a chapter who might feel alone. How do you plan on making them feel part of a community? Let's see. I can probably answer that, but is there any of our candidates who would like to answer that?
Yeah, if I could, Bob, I think that's what I was talking about. If we became a little more porous about its borders and began to see where it could blend its resources with similarly minded organizations that have access to resources, have programs, have facilities. That's what we're doing in my parish. We see ourselves as kind of like this bowl that holds all these different other organizations that are similarly situated, similarly aligned, that are gaining the same thing. We're looking for an inclusive world. We're looking for a world of love, of forgiveness, of less judgment and all that. And so we want to be a home for not only Dignity, but for RCWP, for the Roman Catholic Women's Priest Group, for the conversion therapy survivors group that we are now contacting with. All these police groups have something in common. None of them are strong enough to be able to totally self-sustain, but together we become a little bit more powerful. The model, we're calling it the Taizé model. I mean, I don't know if any of you know about Taizé, but I had the privilege of living there for a summer with the monks. And that's kind of interesting. I mean, Roger Schutz's idea was we come together for what we have in common, and we share places like the common church, the common property, the common resources, what have you. But when we need to be different, we go our own way and we kind of maintain our own identity. So the Protestants stay Protestants, the Catholics stay Catholics, and the Orthodox stay Orthodox. So it's a different way of looking at what it means to be an organization. The borders aren't hard. The memberships aren't quite as rigid. And when you get that flexibility, lots of other possibilities open up.
Okay, thank you, Al. Anybody else? Yes, Mary.
I would just reiterate, I think, what I said earlier in terms of if people are, especially people who are isolated, not necessarily in large city areas, but people that are isolated might, if we know about those people and they reach out to us and say, what can you do to help us? We ought to be able to link those people with one of us or two of us to begin a discussion, whether it's by phone, by email, by Facebook, you know, so that people can not feel so alone, because I think that's one of the worst things possible for LGBTQI people, to feel so isolated and so alone that they don't have anybody that they can personally be in touch with. And that, I think it was Ellen or a couple of you said, you know, the fact that this technology has helped us see each other. I mean, that could happen with somebody who's, you know, very isolated in this country. And I think we don't want people to be isolated, because that's when trouble starts sometimes.
Hey, Bob, could I just say one thing? Because Mary just triggered something. I actually forgot to make the actual point I was trying to make, which is, you know, we don't have something for you in blah, 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 whatever the state is, but we know of a church. We know of another institution, another organization that we're affiliated with that is like-minded to us. Go there, because they're going to give you they're going to be the home you want, even though it's not formally a Dignity chapter. That's kind of the point I was trying to make.
I will say that our own community here, like everyone across the country, has seen all these people come. And it really begs the question. It's like, okay, so maybe we do 4 live liturgies a month and a Zoom liturgy once a month, so that the people in Florida, New York, or wherever can still be a part of the community. I mean, Ellen said it best. Zoom has graced us amazingly. COVID has graced us amazingly, and there's ways that we can really respond to it. The follow-up question to this is, which begs the question, how open is Dignity USA to non-LGBTQI and others?
I think if I could just respond, I think that Dignity USA is open to all of these allied groups. The question is just, do they know that we are open to them? How do we market and present ourselves, and how are we reaching out? I think, I can't remember who, maybe Mary said earlier, that one of her friends was like, oh, I thought you only joined Dignity if you were gay. I think that what we have is not a lack of openness, but a lack of communicating that openness, or a lack of reaching out and making sure that everyone is aware of who we are, our radical hospitality, and that we want everyone to be present with us, that we're open to all.
Yep.
I could tell you in the independent Catholic movement, Dignity is amazingly unknown. I think that's a fixable problem.
The other thing that I would add is that I think the people that are not gay, lesbian, trans, or whatever, that come to our community are there because they've also had it with the church, and they also are looking for attitudes that are more open, and they don't want their children and grandchildren to grow up in the kind of structure that is now becoming oppressive. So I think all of that is part of the picture.
Okay, well, that is our final question. And again, great insights, really great insights, wonderful ideas and thoughts. And I have to give you again the final thank you for willing to do this and being a candidate and share your faith and be a part of our greater organization. So I'm going to turn it over to Kenneth to give a final sort of recapping of what's happening with ballots, and then we'll conclude.
My air conditioning is on, so I'm hoping that it's not too loud. But I want to thank you all. Your dedication to this intersecting identity and to our organization is really, really strong. And I also want to thank all the participants who are here. It's obvious that you're here because you also care about this this organization and about this really unique intersection that can be painful, but also really beautiful when we make it so together as a community. So part of that community involves voting. So our process will be, voting will take place by both email and hard copy ballots. You should have received these emails and ballots. Because of COVID, many are experiencing delays in receiving mail. Some people have experienced, they have not been able to open the links in the email, or they haven't received the email. Please email me at KennethD@dignity.us. dignityusa.org, dignityusa.org, I think. And the electronic ballots were sent to you under my email. And so the email should have included the election information, candidate statement, and the ballot. So the deadline for receiving your votes is July 2nd. That is just under a month from now. It's on a Friday. And those who are receiving paper ballots, please return your ballots 5 days or more prior to July 2nd. So before July 2nd, so that we receive it by that time. And if you're voting by email, the ballots will close online on July 2nd. And then election results will be published in mid-July, and we will alert the candidates first, the candidates elect, and then after that we will publish it to the city and the world, to Dignity and to everybody. So yeah, thank you. Email me if you have any questions.
Thank you all again. This was wonderful. Great to see you face to face, and look forward to working with you soon. Thank you all for your support of Dignity. I'm reading the comments and they're like, the future looks bright. What an inspiration. That is the best hands-on, wonderful endorsement you could get. So thank you for all, and thanks for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.